A lot of people think, is there a better way? Is there a way whereby you can live freely, enjoy life safely, you can enjoy the culture, but the big thing is be taxed fairly. So what's the biggest lie people believe about moving abroad for lower tax?
Maybe it's to do with moving abroad as some complicated elite-only operation. To be honest, it's not. The truth is, countries actually do want you. They built these regimes to attract you. The only people that tend to get in trouble are those who try and do things, DIY these regimes or try and do these routes by themselves. That's why it's so important that you get that expert opinion before doing that.
So Roddy, where are we going to go in Europe next?
The amount of my friends who have chosen.
So let me begin with something deeply personal. Whether you're a founder or investor or an internationally mobile business person, you might have felt this recently, especially in the last few years. And there comes a moment when you realize that your success is being penalized rather than rewarded. What I mean by that is you create jobs, you take risks, you build value, and you generate economic activity for the country that you're living in. But your tax burden increases, and year after year, your freedom and lifestyle starts to become eroded and restricted. So a lot of people think, is there a better way? Is there a way whereby you can live freely, you can enjoy life safely, and you can enjoy the culture, but the big thing is be taxed fairly? And that's what we're going to talk about today. What most people don't realize is that in most European countries, or several European countries and the UAE, you can build entire residency and tax frameworks based on people like yourself. And these tax regimes allow you to live in world-class locations, enjoy great lifestyles, and you can significantly reduce your tax without hiding income, without secrecy, and without risk. And these structures exist because these countries want to attract global entrepreneurs, they want to attract investors and international families. So today we're going to explain how wealthy clients use these regimes, and we want you to truly understand how this applies to your income, your structure, and your lifestyle. So scan the QR code on the screen and we will be here to help you and guide you on a personal journey on how you can obtain residency and save on tax in Europe and the UAE. Before we go any further, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to our channel for more information. So what we're sharing today is the kind of strategic guidance that most advisors simply shy away from. So there'll be some great detail. And joining me on the call is Roddy Introduction. Roddy, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Chris, and welcome everyone. At Marlow Bray, we specialize in global mobility and tax-efficient residency planning. Over the past decade or so, we've helped more than 350 clients obtain residency and citizenship across Europe, the United States, New Zealand, Australia, and the UAE, just to name a few. Our clients are high-earning entrepreneurs, private equity partners, crypto founders, global investors, and internationally mobile families who realize they no longer need to be tied to one jurisdiction, especially not one that penalizes them for generating success. Here at Mallow Bray, we don't simply help clients apply for a visa. We design an entire cross-border lifestyle where you live, where your income is sourced, where you hold your residency, where your tax residency is, and how you legally minimize your tax exposure by aligning those elements correctly. When someone works with us, we obtain the residency visa for them, we manage the non-dom or flat tax regime application, we prepare the structuring, and we ensure their previous ties are handled carefully to avoid accidental taxation. The strategies we covered today are not theoretical. They are solutions we implement weekly for real clients who want a higher quality of life with lower tax, fully compliant and fully transparent.
Yeah, Roddy, you know yourself, you speak to clients globally in the US, in Australia, in the UAE, Hong Kong and Singapore. And, the one thing we always find is getting the best possible, most accurate advice is the most important thing. So if you're watching this, there's a good chance that you probably feel some frustration around your current tax system. Our clients want children to go somewhere safer and somewhere with perhaps more lifestyle benefits as well. Maybe you want more sunshine, maybe you want more space, maybe you want lower stress and perhaps a lower cost country. And maybe you want financial efficiency. And ultimately, that's what you've worked hard for in life. So what we found is, people get held back through fear, and fear is triggering tax events in the wrong country, fear of double taxation, fear of moving abroad only to accidentally pay the highest rates possible. So what we're aiming to show you today is once you understand the rules, the fear disappears, and what remains is choice and freedom, which is ultimately what we all want.
Yeah, very true, Chris. I think the main thing to note is that, the world is shifting. Governments are aggressively increasing tax collection. Information sharing is automatic, and banks are communicating even across borders. And traditional tax residency rules are being enforced, more strongly than ever. But at the same time, certain countries, the likes of Malta, Italy, Greece, Portugal, and also the UAE are actively competing for global talent and capital. They have introduced legal regimes and offering predictable, often extremely low rate tax for individuals who can relocate properly. But these frameworks tend to evolve. Portugal closed its NHR. Italy is discussing adjustments. Greece has also worked on refining its non-dom program. Malta continues to face EU pressure. The UAE remains stable, but requires precise structuring to avoid challenges from your former home country. Timing, sequence, and advice are everything. If you want our full regime comparison matrix, scan the QR code on screen and we'll send it over to you immediately.
Brilliant. So we'll start off looking at the European options. And Malta is, for those that don't know, a beautiful island in the Mediterranean, very close to Italy. And it's an English-speaking country as well. So the big thing here is it offers probably the best and most flexible tax environment for internationally mobile people. And the foundation of the system is the remittance basis. So what that means is when you become resident but remain non-domiciled, you're taxed only on the income you remit into Malta. So if your foreign income remains offshore, it's not taxable. And foreign capital gains are never taxable in Malta, even if you brought into the country. So your best case scenario by obtaining Maltese tax residency is 0% tax on foreign income kept offshore. And Malta has a €15,000 minimum tax that applies to those in the residence program, only on remitted foreign income. So what it means is, your maximum tax exposure there would be €15,000, and you're obtaining Maltese tax residency, which means in your home country, whether it's the UK, US, Ireland, or high rate paying tax, you're not going to be exposed to HMRC's or the IRS's take on your tax. So the key message with Malta is you do need to take advice on this. It is quite a complex area, and you don't want to be inadvertently creating Maltese tax domicile. So your affairs do need to be adequately structured. And this can be done. It can be done in advance. The worst scenario here is you don't want to be assessed on your worldwide income, because then that's 35% tax. I was in Malta last year. Beautiful historic island. It's got all the lifestyle benefits you can expect in an English-speaking environment. It's very safe. It's great healthcare. The climate's pretty warm. It's in the Mediterranean after all. So think of that kind of Italian climate, and you get kind of very similar climate in Malta. And of course, at international airports, you can get across to most European cities easily. You can get over the Middle East. And it is relaxed and it's pretty cost effective as well to live there. So Marlow Bray, we can help you obtain Maltese residency. The Maltese permanent residency program, you will need to either buy or rent a property as part of that. And also you will be required to donate to the government as well. So if that's something that you feel will be of value, I would strongly recommend speaking to one of our advisors. There is another way to Malta, and that's the nomad visa. Typically, you do have to demonstrate passive income. So, and we handle all the documentation. So all the communication with the Malta authorities, all the form filling, everything that you need to establish a tax domicile in an extremely efficient European country. So that's one of the options. We talked about Malta's proximity to Italy, and that's probably a nice segue, Roddy, to looking at our next option for clients to consider in Europe.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so Italy offers what many consider, I guess, sort of the gold standard of predictable tax for wealthy individuals. They offer what's called a flat tax regime. So whether you earn 500,000, 50 million, 500 million abroad, the tax will always remain the same. Now, it's important to know there is a discussion to potentially increase this to 300,000 starting in 2026. But again, nothing is confirmed. So, in the best case scenario, you're essentially only paying that 200,000 euros tax per year on your foreign sourced income. However, there are also some worst case scenarios if you don't follow the right advice. You can move to Italy, you could fail to elect this regime, you then create Italian sourced income unintentionally, you could then establish permanent base, and then you will essentially fall into the standard system, which in some cases can be up to 47% taxation. So it's really important that you get the advice you need before proceeding to make sure that you can save on those taxes. Similar to as Chris was saying, I actually visited Italy just after COVID, so it was a couple of years ago. But everyone knows what Italy is famous for: the culture, the cuisine, the coastline, the climate. You could be in Milan for business, Florence, Lake Como, Rome for the culture and things like the Colosseum. The space is amazing, and there's so much to do there, which is a big reason why many choose to call it their permanent home. Now, at Marlow Bray, we can help you obtain that Italian residency. It's a very popular option for a lot of our clients. Now, the main way is through this Italian golden visa. We can then onboard you as clients, help apply for your residency, and then at the same time get you onto the flat tax program and regime with our specialist counsel.
Brilliant. So we're moving along the map here. We've covered Malta, we've moved east to Italy, and we're now moving further east towards Greece. I was in Athens a few months ago, actually, and Greece offers amazing value, and obviously it's part of the EU. So you've got an opportunity to acquire residency in Greece here through investing in property. So it's quite interesting because it's probably one of the most competitive but unpublicized systems in Europe. So, your best case scenario, you can get a Greek golden visa, you invest in property, you have got the option to apply for citizenship after 7 years. You will need to spend some time in the country, and you can then elect for that flat €100,000 maximum tax per year on foreign income, which is particularly attractive. One thing to be aware of, we do have clients that kind of come to us after they cause their own problems. But if you obtain the Greek residency without guidance, or you fail to qualify for that non-dom regime, or you accidentally shift your tax residency prematurely, you do fall into Greece's standard progressive system. So the recommendation we always make is just speak to a qualified licensed advisor who can talk you through your options and give you a very clear indication. But Greece offers an amazing lifestyle. Food for me is some of the best in Europe, probably after Italian food. But you've got some world-class beaches. I myself am a sailor, so you've got some really nice sailing around south of Athens. You can go to Mykonos. You've got party islands and a very relaxed culture. So very good for mobile entrepreneurs. Good for people with low-ranking passports who want the option of citizenship. But the big thing with with Greece is it comes with a Schengen visa as well. So you've got no restrictions on traveling around Europe. So the Greek golden visa, it's €250,000, has to be invested into property. And with that, you get two things. You get appreciation of that property. Athens property is probably running around 4 to 5% appreciation at the moment each year. Also getting an income, a yield paid out to you, and that's typically around 3-4%, depending on where the property is. And these are rented out to professionals. You receive the income in your Greek bank account. And unlike London property, which I own, there's not many service charges. There's no agents nibbling away at your income there. It's very efficient from a returns point of view. So Greek golden visa, €250,000. There's also financially independent visa as well. So you need to demonstrate €2,500 passive income or monthly income per month. And after the approval, we file the non-dom application if that tax route works for you. So, Roddy, where are we going to go in Europe next?
Moving swiftly on to Portugal. Now, many of you have obviously heard of Portugal for a lot of reasons, whether it's to do with the golden visa, the lifestyle, but it's an amazing place. Now, they do have a regime called the non-habitual residency tax route. It's now the NHR 2.0, which is sort of the newly, new improved option available, and it still has these excellent benefits. So best case scenario, you're paying 0% tax on qualifying foreign sourced income and just 20% on eligible Portuguese income. Now, if, as we've previously discussed about the other programs, if you move without any advice and you fail to qualify, you misstructure your income or become a tax resident without properly planning for it, you can fall into their standard system, which can go up to approximately 53%. So quite a hefty toll if not prepared for in advance. The amount of my friends who have chosen Portugal as the place they can imagine, becoming a digital nomad or living full time is pretty crazy, to be honest. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It's safe, it's affordable. It's got a lovely climate and a big expat community. It's got great healthcare, and I think a big thing for a lot of people is it's a relaxed way of life. So you could be in Lisbon, Cascais, Porto, Algarve. They're very well linked, and I think that is a big draw factor for a lot of people looking to call Portugal home. The other beauty of Portugal is to qualify for residency. There's particularly routes for a lot of people. So, you could look at the D2 entrepreneur visa, which we recommend. Once we've got that information for you, or which we've decided which route you're going to go down, we can then prepare your NHR 2.0 should you qualify for it. So that's a bit about Portugal. Now moving out of Europe onto somewhere that is very relevant these days. It seems that everyone from the UK seems to be moving there. So Chris, maybe you can give us a bit of information about the UAE and the tax situation out there.
Yeah, thanks, Roddy. And it's super interesting that the UAE is probably the cleanest zero personal income tax regime in the world. So there's no tax on salaries, there's no tax on capital gains, investments, dividends, property income, or crypto profits. So, of course, what's the end result of that? Well, yourself, the stories. It's attracted so many people globally from the US, from the UK, from Europe, not just attracted by the ease of acquiring residency there, also the tax benefits as well. But we speak to a number of clients who fail to break ties with their home country, whether it be in the UK or the US. And that does cause issues in your home country. So, worst case scenario in the UK, you're paying up to 50% tax. US could be similar, could be around 40%. So the important thing is, yes, it's easy to acquire the Dubai Golden Visa. You can invest in real estate, you can open a business, but you do need to structure your investments. You do need to structure your wealth in advance. The UAE does offer amazing infrastructure. It's super safe. Everything is digital in terms of their systems, their processes. Schooling is great in terms of opportunities to get your kids into great international schools. And it's convenient as well. I mean, look at the flight connections right in the Middle East. You can get to pretty much everywhere globally through big airlines and ease of connections through the rest of the world. So the way we do it at Marlow Bray is we can help you obtain that UAE residency. And probably the two popular routes here are company formation, so establishing a Dubai business, or the Golden Visa. So the Golden Visa is probably the most attractive way, and that's investing in Dubai property, whether it's off-plan or existing property. And obtaining the Dubai Golden Visa can be done pretty quickly as well. We get it done in a few months. So it means you have the option of living there or staying in your home country and having it as a plan B. Roddy, so what's the biggest lie people believe about moving abroad for lower tax?
That's a really good question, Chris. I think that maybe it's to do with moving abroad as some shady, complicated, elite-only operation. To be honest, it's not. The truth is way more boring than that. Countries actually do want you. They built these regimes to attract you. The only people that tend to get in trouble are those who try and do things, DIY these regimes or try and do these routes by themselves. That's why it's so important to speak with professionals and experts who know what they're talking about. Malta, they're offering this regime, as I just said, to attract people. It's not a trap. They're not trying to trick you. It's there for people to apply for, but it's really important that you get that expert opinion before doing that.
So, Roddy, you're at the coalface. You're talking to clients every day. What's the most interesting thing a client has said to you before relocating?
I think it's a theme with a lot of clients who kind of need to make a decision when it comes to these tax reducing moves is, are you actually willing to relocate? You can't FaceTime your way into a residency or a tax regime. You need to show up, You need to breathe the air, eat the food, speak to the locals. You need to make that requirement. It's not teleportation, it's relocation. I think that's really important for clients to understand from the get-go is, we're happy to help you and find ways to get residency and reduce your taxes. But from your side, it's realistically going to take you moving there for an extended period of time. Okay, Chris, so if you had to pick the worst way to choose a specific country, what would it be?
Well, my background is wealth management and financial planning, and you always get people that choose stocks or equities because their friend has tipped them. And much the same way that's bad advice, people sometimes go and select a residency program because their friend has done that program. Now, whilst that may be right for them, it's not necessarily right for the person that's looking at it. So the key takeaway here is everyone's different. Everyone has different outcomes they want. It's not just about tax. It could be about time to citizenship. It could be time to spend in the country. It could be about schooling or university education for the kids. So don't follow the crowd. Follow your own pathway, seek advice, and get the right answers based on your circumstances. So, Roddy, really intrigued from your conversations you have with prospects every day. What's the one thing people always forget when choosing where to move?
Yeah, I think especially as we mentioned in previous questions about with tax residency, you do need to physically show some sort of presence. And one thing I like to bring up is actually the flight time. I think for a lot of people, they forget that, if you need to go home or you need to go and visit your family, it gets tiring to do 2-3 layovers to get home, basically. So one thing I always tell them to keep in mind is how often will you be looking to go home and how many layovers is too many for you? I give an example of some people I know, they move to Australia, but then they forget that to get home, it's going to take 24 hours and costs you upwards of nearly 2,000 Australian dollars. So it's really important when considering to make these moves, how you're going to structure it in terms of visiting and going back home to see friends and family. So Chris, we've discussed Italy, Malta, Greece, Portugal, and then finally the UAE. So the all important question, which I'm sure everyone wants to know is what's the best option and where should they go?
Yeah, it's probably one of the number one questions we always get, which is the best? And the reality is there's no single answer for this. The choice depends on a range of factors. A, your lifestyle, B, your family structure, and your travel patterns and your business obligations, and ultimately how long you want to spend waiting for the visa to come through. Some people assume that the tax rate alone determines the decision, but in our experience, it's the emotional and practical considerations that are equally important. For example, we had a client recently, elderly parents in the UK. They need to fly back regularly, and they're based outside London, and connectivity to airports is quite important for them. We have an entrepreneur in Ireland that wanted to establish tax residency in Malta. His kids are 8, 10, and 12. And of course, he can't spend as much time away from Ireland because he's going to miss their schooling, he's going to miss them growing up. So a big factor for him is proximity, and flying from Malta to Ireland is fairly quick, some easy direct flights. So, another factor to consider with the UAE, if you do want to spend time in the UAE, yes, it gets hot in summer. Most people do leave and go back to their home country. So don't just think of the tax alone as the benefits. Think of the lifestyle and think of how this fits in with your family plans. And that's really why you do need to speak to an advisor to get a summary of all the options. But more importantly, an advisor will ask some more questions to understand your situation and then recommend a route that suits your goals more perfectly.
I do agree with that. And I think, something that people overlook, and you briefly touched on it, is, if you make a tax efficient move, it comes with a sacrifice. Most of the time when you relocate internationally, you can actually upgrade your lifestyle while reducing your tax burden. If you have business that requires you to travel to London, Amsterdam, Zurich, then something like Malta and the UAE become appealing because, as you said, you're sort of more central there. If you want the ability to fly back to New York or LA, the US is a massive market for us, as it is for a lot of people in this industry, and you don't want to necessarily connect two times, then Portugal and Italy become better options because you can fly directly to those locations. If you need to take in family, we all have FaceTime now, WhatsApp. So if you want to FaceTime them, then time zones come into account. So making sure that you're not waking up at 3 a.m. to FaceTime your kids is a big factor. I think another one is schools as well. Clients with young children will often prioritize countries where international schools have space, reputation, English language pathways. And as you touched on, Chris, Dubai has that. They have those international schools with English curriculum. Malta is actually English speaking, so you have that benefit. Portugal has a lot of international schools as well, but waiting lists can be long. And I think Italy has some of the best and finest international education options in Europe. And I think a lot of clients we speak to also think, I'm going to go, try and reduce my taxes by moving internationally. And sometimes they decide to leave their family at home. But actually, with a lot of these options, it can be a case of bringing them along with you. There are education options everywhere. There are international schools, or if they're young enough, even local schools. There's no harm in picking up another language. I suppose another point is obviously looking at things like integration. A lot of our clients say, what if I can't find a community there? What if I can't build friendships? Well, I think for a lot of people, there are expat communities everywhere. You soon become part of the local culture. You make local friends. If you want slower living and in a calmer way of life, somewhere like Portugal, Malta as well. If you want business opportunities, places like Dubai obviously provide that. But there are options for everyone based off your lifestyle choices. Back to what we were talking about, the real answer is which country is best. And as you say, Chris, I'm going to copy you in that there's no real one answer, one solution fits all. It depends on when you need that replanning. If you want to bring your family, location, lifestyle, travel, business, everything. So yeah, that's another reason why it's important to consult not just on the tax advice, but on the relocation and residency advice as well.
Thanks for that, Roddy. So really intrigued, your perspective. You're an advisor, you're on calls daily with clients. What's the process when you get an inquiry? What does that person go through? What touch points do they have to help them with their decision making?
Yeah, of course. So I guess the first thing to say is I think it's important from us that we're not a one phone call or a two phone call sort of solution. What we offer is multiple touch points where we will address different parts of the process. So to give you an example, a client will inquire. We'll have an initial 15-20 minute call just to understand a bit more about what they're looking for, how we can help, a bit about Marlow Bray. And that just gives us a chance to first understand if we can work, if we can help them, but also if they want to work with us, which is a really important factor. What we then look to do is book a bit of a longer call, 30 to 40 minutes. And that's when we sort of discuss openly the programs. We're not there to shove a certain product or shove a certain program down your throat. It's all an open conversation on which programs meets your requirements. We can talk about the investment requirements, the stay requirements, the benefits. We can touch on the taxes as well. It just gives us an opportunity to go through that in more detail. Then what we then do is look to go through one of the programs in a bit more detail that you've selected, whether that be Portugal, Greece, Italy. Look at investment options, look at the tax implications, and from there, then book in another call. So from that, we're basically trying to get as much information, as we can to offer the best solution for you. Multiple touch points mean that we get multiple chances to meet you, because at the end of the day, it's the client who's selecting us to handle this for them, and we want complete trust and understanding that we're going to be able to do that to the best of our ability.
Yeah. So what you're saying there, it de-risks things. The client's not paying any money before they've been through that 3-stage process, really, to find out whether the program is right for them or which program's right for them, whether it fits their objectives, and can they achieve all the documentation and go through the next stage. So from what you're saying, there's no risk in speaking to an advisor here to understand the options, right?
Exactly. And it's actually one of the questions we get asked the most is, when will we start being charged? When do we need to start paying you? And I think it's a really important question, but the advice we give on all the calls is there to help you as much as possible. We're not going to charge you anything. I'm not going to require payment until you're 100% certain on the program you want to proceed with. if it's applicable, the taxes or the tax regime you're looking to do. And we just want you to be 100% comfortable with that. We want to cover all bases and make sure by the time we proceed, nothing's left up in the air.
Absolutely. Well, I think just summing up what we've learned here, we've learned that there are some great options to obtain EU residency through Malta and pay a maximum of €15,000 on the remittance basis. We've learned Greece's flat rate tax regime, €100,000 per year. We've learned that Italy has a tax regime you can pay $200,000 a year. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're earning 7-8 figures and above, or you have an exit for your companies, these could be countries that could save you significant tax compared with, say, UK, the US, or other high tax countries globally. So we've learned that Portugal has the NHR 2.0 program, whereby you're not paying any tax on certain overseas income, which is of huge value for people that don't want any additional tax burden. We've also learned as well that UAE is a great place to either establish a business or buy property, both of which give you eligibility to apply for the Dubai Golden Visa. And then, of course, you can take advantage of Dubai's extremely tax efficient environment, particularly if you're remitting money from overseas. So in terms of next steps, if this has been of value to you, first of all, I ask you to like and subscribe. That really helps our channel. And secondly, to speak to Roddy, to speak to one of our advisors, simply just scan the QR code you've got on the screen now. That takes you directly through to our WhatsApp, and we'll be happy to help and engage with you. But subscribe to our channel and keep yourself updated with more details in the future.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and I look forward to speaking to all of you soon.